1 year ago, I reviewed Triple Helix #1. Triple Helix isn't just a comic. For me, it is a moment of significance. It is a moment where I was left so awestruck by what I had just read that I needed to talk about it. I needed to create the first episode of Positively Dreadful just to get my thoughts on this comic off my chest. And what were those thoughts? Confusion. Following the titular superhero team created by comic book legend John Byrne, the comic moved at an oddly fast pace, but dumped you right into the action without ever stopping to give you the context. It sort of expected you to just roll with it, and I did. I knew that the next issue would help put things in perspective, and just a few issues in, I'd know all about Triple Helix and their world. And so, without further delay, let's take a look at the rest of Triple Helix. Okay, so how exactly do I describe this comic? Meet our heroes: Javelin, who can create and throw javelins; Cataclysm, who shoots lasers; Pylon, who is really big and really strong; Dash, who is super speedy; and Apex, who is a monkey. I can foresee him being a huge help. The basic story is that Triple Helix discover a superhero friend of theirs, Rock, has been somehow transformed into a hulking monster that can't speak properly. They have an encounter with giant robots called the Monitors and a villain named Golgoth before taking him back to their base to have him tested. Inside, the dark secrets behind the team begin coming to light, while the man behind the Monitors plots the destruction of the team and their mysterious leader. Now, I know what you're thinking. That doesn't sound overly complicated. In fact, that sounds pretty straightforward. Well, you know what they say. Appearances can be lying liars who lie and subsequently ruin your life. The way I see it, Triple Helix has 4 major factors running against it. In this review, I'm going to try and explore and highlight these factors. The keyword being try. Comic books have been around for a long time, and the simple matter of what happened and when is a constant problem. Say you've seen the Spider-Man movies and watched some of the cartoons, and you try to read a comic. When did J. Jonah Jameson become mayor of New York? Who the hell is Carly Cooper? Peter can't have his own company, he's just a photographer. And why is Flash Thompson, the bully, a nice guy with no legs, and why does he have the Venom symbiote? Sounds confusing, doesn't it? Well, okay, now just imagine that situation, except you don't actually have 50 years of comic books behind it to fill in the blanks. You only have these 4 comics. Ladies and gentlemen, Triple Helix. For example, at the end of issue 2, the team brings Rock to their base to meet their leader, who turns out to be the Grand Designer. The notorious mass-murdering supervillain who we've never met before and therefore did not know he was a notorious mass-murdering supervillain until you explained that on the exact same page where he was introduced? You've already convinced me you're not the supervillain everyone says you are. Well, I sure am glad we wasted a cliffhanger on that plot point. At the start of the comic, Pylon is in hospital for some reason while the rest of the team thinks he's dead. Turns out the main villain is secretly holding him against his will, but his paralyzed daughter ends up releasing him back to his friends. When I first read issue 1, I had no idea Pylon was actually meant to be part of a team. And later on, when things get hectic, boss, you're running! And John Byrne's been in the comic industry for more than 2 decades. He's worked on a lot of stuff as both an artist and a writer, so I think this may actually be on purpose. He specifically wanted to make a story that felt like it was just one chapter in a long series of Triple Helix comics. Maybe in context, this is Triple Helix number 137. If that is the case, then congratulations! You have created a comic that is by definition, designed to alienate readers and stop people from buying it. We never get a real explanation for the monitors, but what we do get is an explanation for the man controlling them. And who is this man? Evil Reed Richards! Which is probably intentional, as John Byrne is famous for his run on the Fantastic Four, which many people feel was the definitive take on the characters once the goofy insanity of the Silver Age was no longer the norm. You see, he was once a multi-billionaire scientist working with a man named Alav Aslan, presumably the Grand Designer. But when not Reed Richards' pregnant wife fell ill, Aslan offered to use his experimental science to save her. Unfortunately, he apparently had ulterior motives, and while she successfully gave birth, she died in the process. Not Reed Richards had Aslan arrested, but he later escaped. Sometime later, Triple Helix arrived on the scene. Remembering that Aslan had codenamed his secret project as Triple Helix, he realized that there had to be a connection behind this, and vowed that he'd do whatever it took to destroy them and bring him to justice. Okay. It looks like he's right. He and the Grand Designer do meet up later, and they do seem to recognize each other. However, it's, we don't know for sure, and you based this entire theory on a code name, which could have very possibly been a coincidence. It is possible, nay, it is extremely likely that you became a psychotic, deranged supervillain in charge of an army of giant robots for absolutely no reason, and you have wasted most of your life. You are my new favorite character. After everything, I think you've earned at least that. In the pages of Triple Helix, you will learn the truth behind Rock's identity. You will discover the dark secret behind the team's origin and watch as they clash with two generations of deadly monitor robots. There's even interdimensional entities, personal secrets, and moral dilemmas to deal with. It's at least 12 issues worth of material. And let me remind you, this is a 4-issue miniseries. Remember in my New 52 review where I talked about writing for the trade? You know, stretching out a simple story to be unnecessarily long? Well, this is like the complete opposite of that. And I've got a name for that too. Chaos! Things go by so quickly that they don't have time to sink in properly. Throughout the comic, some of the team appear to be horribly disfigured under their costumes, hinting at the dark nature behind their powers in the Grand Designer. But no time to worry about that, we need to fight giant robots. Oh, but that's not even my favorite example. Issue 4 starts with a scene on Polanax 4 with a separate team of heroes called the Conclave fighting a massive sentient mass of plant life. They bicker and argue with each other, again as if we're supposed to know who they are already. Garland has gone all out this time. I wonder if he has a way to undo this transformation. I am so glad I know who that is and what you're talking about. One of the Conclave, Silver Shadow, flies their ship into the monster's face, sacrificing himself in order to take it down. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly does this have to do with Triple Helix and the monitors? Well, so am I. Though this does transition nicely into my next point. Inevitably, shit gets real. Golgoth puts his mind into the body of his coroner and is on the loose again, and Dash discovers her teammate's deformities, which she had known nothing about. Dr. Dumbass's daughter accidentally breaks her suit and begins rapidly mutating into a spider, giving the heroes the upper hand as the monitors attack the base. But Dash discovers the Grand Designer's most ambitious project, something so horrible she flees for her very life. But before she can warn the others, she and Rock are abruptly transported into another dimension by a mysterious entity who is keeping Rock's sister against her will. What happens next?
Never gonna give you up.
Not the end? Damn straight not the end. You just stopped. That's like if you played Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and they rolled the credits after he defeats Super Saiyan Brandon Routh. I'd be all like, hey, that's not a good place to end it. So, what exactly is going on here? Well, to answer that, we need to take a quick trip to the past. In my first review, I mentioned that John Byrne did another book in the same universe called Trio. And he did. So does Trio suffer from the same problems as Yes It Does? But to Trio's credit, there is, by comparison, a lot less going on, and better yet, the story actually has a conclusion. Personally, I never realized that those were optional, but hey, that's just me. It does end with a cliffhanger, but said cliffhanger leads directly into the events of Triple Helix #1. For that reason, I believe that John Byrne intends to write a third series continuing the story in some way. In fact, I'm going to even guess that it'll focus on the Conclave this time. I do have to give some points for creativity, but how exactly were we supposed to figure that out? I mean, at the end of Trio, there's nothing like, "To be continued in the pages of Triple Helix." There is nothing like that. What, am I just not looking hard enough? Is it encoded? And that brings me to my fourth, final, and biggest problem with Triple Helix. Dozens of characters, some of the strangest twists and turns I've ever seen in a comic, and some quite frankly amazing artwork? Is it just me, or does this actually sound like a really good comic? John Byrne is infamous for having more than a bit of an ego, but like I said, he's been doing this for a while, and it really, really shows. I actually think that every single plot point in this story is legitimately interesting. I want to know what the hell is going on with the Grand Designer. Why the hell did they think Pylon was dead, and how the hell did he end up in Dr. Dumbass's custody? I want to know! And the artwork? I think this may actually be the first time in a long while that I have loved every single character design for every single hero and every single villain. From the team itself to the monitors to even the Conclave, every single character is well designed and I'd even say worthy of cosplaying. Same goes for Trio. It makes me want to learn more about these characters, who they are under the masks. And that's why this is a problem. Because we don't. The most developed character in the entire book is Dr. Dumbass, the bad guy. What's Apex's story? I want to know what's up with him. It's a lot like having 15 bucks. This 15 bucks could be anything. I could buy a book, spend hours reading it. I could go to the movies and change my life. I could go to the beach with my girlfriend. I could do something really productive with my day thanks to this 15 bucks. Or I could buy 7 bags of candy.
Actually, I'm feeling pretty good about myself, to be honest.
The point is, Triple Helix has all the ingredients to make a good, no, fantastic comic book. Maybe even one of the best I've read. But sadly, it doesn't quite get there. Despite my complaints, I really have to take my hat off to John Byrne for all the effort that went into this admittedly cramped series. And now, you know where my hat went. So, if the series does continue with The Conclave or whatever John Byrne has in mind, am I going to read it? Hell yes I am. And am I going to be really frustrated and confused? Hell yes I am. In a weird way, I feel I owe this comic. I'd wanted to do Positively Dreadful for years, but I never managed to get up and find the motivation to finish a video. I had dozens of unfinished scripts on my computer, I didn't even really know what the gimmick of the show was going to be, and I barely knew how to edit a video anyway. Still don't. But it took a comic as bizarre yet enjoyable as Triple Helix to get me out of that slump and just make a video. And for that, I honestly have to say thank you to John Byrne for basically co-creating Positively Dreadful. Thank you, John Byrne. Besides, if I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't have it on the show. So until next time, stay positive everyone.